Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Hairymuppet. Welcome back to some... For some reason, I almost said Factorio. Almost said StarCraft. It is Factorio. It is Factorio Space Age. And I've been building a lot of DSM ships. And I'm actually kind of looking after this one a little bit, because he is going off to Aquilo to pick up some railguns, but he doesn't quite have... Well, technically she, because this is a DSM, which you may or may not know stands for Deep Space Mother. So I suppose this is a she, but anyway. I sent them off with... They're a little bit dry on rockets. The belts are not completely full up, so I'm just kind of keeping an eye on it to make sure that it makes it to Aquilo without rapidly dying or anything like that. But yeah, so today it is the last tutorial. There's no more tutorials after this, and there's no more science after this. So this is all about the shattered planet. It's all about the Promethium science, and this is one of our DSMs, so we can talk about the shattered planet using this sort of ship. Although we really should be starting with the recipe, because usually we just look at the base and we sort of say, okay, this is what it is. But the thing is, with the Promethium science, it's a bit all over the place. You can't just make it on one planet. You have to make it from not every single different planet, but you need now Vs, you need Aquilo, and you need to travel out to the shattered planet to get those Promethium asteroid chunks. So since we're on the ship, and since I am sort of shepherding this ship, rockets, but it's getting rockets very slowly, so we have to keep an eye on it. Let's actually go over to DSM Science 4, and we'll talk about the big thing first, because this guy is currently out at the edge of the solar system and is heading out towards the shattered planet to get some chunks. Whoops. Let's go back there. So, this ship, it's obvious, but this ship is overbuilt. It's massive. It's absolutely massive. And all of the asteroid collectors at the front of the ship, facing forward, have been filtered to only get Promethium asteroid chunks, because the side ones are pretty much good enough to get all the remaining asteroids, and these belts are pretty much backed up. Now, if you want to know a bit more about this ship and its design, I did do a previous playthrough video called the Deep Space Mother, where we went into a lot of detail about this ship. So for the purposes of this video, we're only really going to be talking about the parts that relate to Promethium science. So basically what this ship does is it's got enough cache for about 25,000 Promethium chunks. So what it does is, according to its schedule, it goes out to the shattered planet, and if any of these things are true, then it starts going backwards. So it measures the Promethium asteroid chunks by putting a circuit network on these belts and measuring the entire contents of the belts. And this will keep about 12k in it. So yeah, it's basically just measuring how much is on the belt. The Promethium asteroid chunks stack to 1, which means that you cannot put them in the inventory because they will fill up so fast it's not even funny. We got 500 extra slots in there, which means we could store a total of 500 Promethium asteroid chunks in that hub, which is terrible. But yeah, and you cannot stack them on the belt either. They have a stack size of 1. So all you can do is just do a ton of belts. Okay, we seem to be okay. None of these guys are running out of rockets. That's fine. Now I could create more belts, but yeah, right now it is getting all of the asteroid chunks in one trip. So it keeps going out until it gets to 10k. And then it turns around and it heads back home, but it's getting chunks on the way back as well. So at the end, it ends up at around 20 to 25k. Usually ends up with like completely chockers at 25k, because what happens is, so the full trip of this guy is it goes to the shattered planet, fills up on chunks, goes back to, so we've actually got an interrupt. I should probably get rid of this interrupt and just put it in here normally, but it's a pain because I have to drag this exact schedule around, and this schedule has got a lot of stuff in it, so I don't want to do that. But yeah, basically once it gets back to the solar system edge, this interrupt will kick off saying it's got more than 20k. It will then go to Aquilo and fulfill all of its requests, which is basically the quantum processors, which will show that production in a minute. Then it goes to NowVis, and it'll stay there until either all these requests are fulfilled and the science and the chunks are 0, or if the quantum processor and the science is 0. So in other words, if there for some crazy reason it runs out of quantum processors, but it still has Promethium chunks, then it'll head off. Now this is pretty much impossible since I upped the requests of quantum processors to 1400, because it's a ratio of like 1 to 25. So 1400 times 25 is 35,000 chunks. So as long as it's got less than 35,000 chunks, it's never going to use up all the quantum processors. So it'll fill up on chunks, it'll go back to Aquilo, and then it will pick up all of the quantum processors that it's missing, and they'll go back to NowVis, and it'll load up Biter eggs, and it'll immediately convert those Biter eggs into the science, because you've got the cryogenic plants on the ship. Now, the thing about this science is you can only craft it in space. Otherwise, I would be sending this ship back to Aquilo. I would be dropping the chunks en masse down on Aquilo. I'd be sending the Biter eggs from NowVis to Aquilo, and I'd be making all the science on Aquilo, because that would mean a lower round trip for this Promethium chunk collecting ship. But you can only build them in space, which means that if I had these ships drop them off on Aquilo, then there's another, the Aquilo would have to rocket them up back to another ship, and the rocket capacity is 10. Which means that I would need 2,500 rockets to shoot all of the chunks that one single ship could collect. Which, that's an insane amount of rockets. And it's especially insane when you remember that it's on Aquilo, and Aquilo is launching all its rockets based on blue circuits and LDS, which are being sent down by a couple of angels. So I would completely destroy the supply from those angels if I tried to do something as stupid as that. Which means that these ships are basically the ones that have to be making the science. And since they're the ones that are making the science, they're the one, it makes a bit more sense for them to go all the way back to NowVis, get the Biter eggs themselves, drop off the science themselves. I could pick up the Biter eggs on Aquilo, and I could drop off the science on Aquilo, but then Aquilo would have to send the science back up and blah blah blah, and I'd have to send the Biter eggs up and blah blah blah, and the Biter eggs spoil. So yeah. Now the spoilage doesn't impact the quality of the science packs, but it's still a little bit funky of a situation, and we'll get into the Biter eggs in a sec, but basically if I send them over to Aquilo, then they're going to be spoiling in some storage chest on Aquilo. Whereas if I just send them from NowVis, then I can keep them unspoiled pretty much until I need them, which I'll get back into in a second. So yeah. Now you do get some science, because when it leaves NowVis, it does fill up on Biter eggs, because it's got this 2000k Biter egg request, and so even when it's out of asteroid chunks, it'll still get 2000. So what'll happen is that it'll start to get chunks on the way out to the shattered planet, and those chunks will eventually make it through the belts, and then their science will actually start being produced because you've got all of these biter eggs basically just sitting there, which is cool. So you end up building some science nice and early. And what that also means is that you're using up a bunch of chunks nice and early, which is why I only have this set at 10k, but I get 25k for the total trip because so many chunks get used up really, really early by the leftover biter eggs, which means that, yeah, you end up going a long way to get to 10k. In fact, I could probably drop this down to like 9 or 8k and I'd still end up with 25k on the full round trip. Okay, so this guy did make it to Aquilo, and it's actually built up a bit of rockets, which is nice. So I got to go over to Aquilo, and we're currently sending off the rare ones, which is great. So that ship will slowly fill up. Yeah. So basically, it's going to go up there, is going to get a total of 25k asteroid chunks, and some of it will be converted into science for the leftover biter eggs, and most of them will just be sitting in these belts waiting for the trip back to Nalvis. And yeah, I know that some people have done a solution where they get a buttload of biter eggs right from the start, and then they produce all the science in transit. I generally don't do that because, I mean, look at the biter eggs. This is the point where 65,000k out to the shattered planet, and I've got biter eggs that are almost on the very edge of dying. I should actually change these to be spoiled priority first. Yeah, that would be good. I think that's a good idea. I'd have to change that on all my other ships, but whatever, it's all good. The downside of that is if I use spoiled first, then it may be getting some of the more spoiled ones, which means it makes more efficient use of the biter eggs, which means that it produces more science, which means that it gets more chunks, which means that it goes further out into the edge of the solar system, which means I would probably have to drop this down to like 8 or 7k in order to avoid going further out. Because if I go further out, then I cap over 25k, and I just end up with these belts really, really backed up, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but it can get to the point where it actually backs up the ingestion of other types of asteroids if it gets too insane. But that's not a huge concern, but it is a little bit of a concern. Anyway, I don't mind it too much, so we'll just leave the inserters as they are at the moment, and yeah. If these eggs spoil a little bit, it is what it is. It is what it is. But yeah, basically that's it. I've got 5 ships constantly cycling. I've got a 6th ship, which is currently building some railguns. And I've got 3 more ships. This one's waiting for some legendary turrets, and these 2 are right in the early stages of being built. So let's talk about the other processes. So if we go over to Aquilo, we can see that I've got a grand total of 6 quantum processors being built. 6 quantum processors using the EM plants with a bunch of legendary prod modules. And I got some very annoying rockets over here launching up the railguns. Railguns are 1 per rocket launch, so it takes an entire rocket just to launch a single railgun, which when you have a ship that takes 40 railguns is quite a lot. So anyway, these guys have a few speed modules each, 4 in total actually, but they only produce 0.59 per second, which is okay because when you're doing 5k SPM you need a total of 2.8 quantum processors per second if you're using legendary prod modules on the science buildings, which, I mean, you probably should be for Promethium science because, yeah, I mean, asteroid chunks are so painful to get. Quantum processors are not quite as painful, but they're still painful. So yeah, Get some legendary. If you only make 8 legendary prod modules in the entire game, put them on a building that's making Promethium science, because they will pay for themselves a million times over. So, in terms of what these guys need, these two are on the planet. Carbon fiber, superconductors, tungsten carbide. You'll need to ship all 3 of these goods over from your other 3 planets. Obviously, Gleba, Fulgora, and Tungsten and Volcanus. And blue circuits, you'll probably need to ship over from Navis or get them some other way, but we got an angel doing that, so we could just reuse them. But anyway, that's pretty much what it is. Now, in terms of the other planets, you really don't need a huge supply. I mean, if we go over Fulgora, my previous 120 SPM is just bumping up a bunch of them, and that's enough. Volcanus, my previous 120 SPM is just bumping up a bunch. You don't need a lot of them. You need a fairly small amount. I mean, probably like 1 per second or something ridiculously small like that. Gleba, I'm building a ton of them, but the only reason I'm building a ton of them is because I'm trying to make legendary rocket turrets as well, and that chews up a lot of carbon fiber, but yeah, you don't need much. It's literally like 1 per second for making that sort of stuff. Most of the pain you'll have when building these is... Oh! I just realized I am missing some legendary prod modules here. There we go. It is a thing of beauty having some robots on Aquilo. But there we go, that guy's going to be doing a much better job now. So yeah, if you've done the rest of Aquilo, then you already know how to do this belt manipulation stuff. You can see this guy is getting 5 belts in. Space them out a bit. 2 spaces, that way you can fit all of the heat pipes, all of the beacons, all that sort of stuff. Don't go insane and try and get more than 4 beacons on here, because you're just going to do your brain in trying to fit them all in. And yeah, that's pretty much it. 4 sets of belts, 2 items on each belt, and yeah, you're pretty much good to go. Over here I've got 2 rockets, launching them up, because I do need a bit of throughput when you end up with multiple rockets ending up there at the same time. But 2 rockets is more than enough, assuming that you don't sync up all of your ships to pass over Aquilo at the same time. Now, the last thing you need is the biter eggs. Basically, I've got this little setup. So I have my own captive biter spawners, which I've created using this recipe, which is very late game to get this recipe, but I mean, you're making Promethium science, so you've unlocked every single recipe in the entire game. So yeah, you build a bunch of these, and then you do this little setup around a rocket silo. Now, the important thing you need to know is once you put biter eggs in a rocket silo, they start to spoil. But if you just leave them in the biter egg place, the biter spawner, they will just sit there forever and they will never spoil, which is awesome. You do need to feed it a constant amount of bioflux, but bioflux is not that hard. I got 3 ships doing bioflux, and to be honest, I only really need 2. Maybe I could get away with 1. And from Gleba, like, it's again my old 120 SPM build. I just took off the science producers, chucked the bioflux in a chest, and it's more than enough. More than enough. And you just send it over there, and you request a buttload on Navis and let robots take care of it, and these guys will never run out of bioflux. You don't need all that much. And what I've got here is I've got a little setup where you read the orbital requests, and then you just set a filter inserter on the inserter, which removes the eggs, and so whenever a ship is requesting biter eggs, this will turn on, it'll start yanking them out, putting them directly into the rocket, and Bob's your uncle. If you have a ton of ships all over Navis at the same time, even with, I think I've got 24 rockets surrounded by 6 biter spawners each, that'll usually be enough. You'll be able to keep 2 or 3 different ships filled with biter eggs at the same time. It will start to slow down a little bit if you've got more than about 2 or 3 ships, but the thing is, yeah, it's enough. It's enough. Most of the time, when your ship is sitting above Now Vs, it'll basically just be, it'll have like 1,000 biter eggs in it. It'll be constantly spawning through the science. And we can see, this guy got out to about 120,000 Ks, 130, something like that, and now it's heading back. And if we have a look, we can see that it's got a total of 12,000 Promethium in it, and it's got about 110,000 Ks. So you can see this guy is going to be overfilled, probably. So I do need to tweak. And it actually produced about 5,000 science or something like that. 5,500 science, which is pretty awesome. So, yeah. That's pretty much it. So, you need to get your interplanetary logistic systems up and going. You need ships sending a whole bunch of different things over to Aquilo to build the quantum processors. You could send the quantum processors over to Now Vs and then send them up with the biter eggs, but it's not a huge deal. I mean, my theory with this is if my Promethium science production isn't up to scratch, I just make more ships. Now that is screwing me over in UPS land, but here's the thing, right? So here's the thing. People have mentioned that there is a thing coming along which will make the Promethium asteroid collecting stuff a lot easier. Right now, I have moved to the experimental patch of 2.023, which has the asteroid chunks improvement. As you can see, my FPS is still just under 30. So it has improved it. If we look at entity time usage, my asteroid collector, it used to be bumping up around 10, like 14 maybe. Now it's down to about 7, so it's halved. But it is still below. And I think it used to be purely the asteroid collectors. Now we can see that asteroid collectors are still contributing a lot, but also my inserters are still contributing a lot. My assembly machines are still high. So I think it's like a more overall sort of thing that's causing a problem. But if I only have 1 or 2 ships out to the shattered planet, then yes, it would probably be a bit more of a case of 45 or so UPS, maybe 40. So they have improved it, absolutely. It's still not 60 UPS, but then again, I got a 5-year-old computer, so yes, if I bought a brand new computer, then we might be able to make 60 UPS happen. But yes, it's improved, but it is what it is. So that's pretty much it. That's pretty much how you do Promethium science. Now, you would probably make a ship that's smaller than this, but what you really want to do is, first of all, get your cycle sorted out. Figure out how you're going to actually make the science. Obviously, I would recommend doing what I did, which is you go out, you get the Promethium, and then you send that ship all the way back. You don't want to send it to Aquilo. You could try and make that work, but then you're sending biter eggs all the way from Now Vs to Aquilo, and the biter eggs would survive. They would survive that trip, but the problem is then you have to sync up the amount, because you have to sync it up with the ships coming back to Aquilo, and you have to make sure that the biter eggs are there, ready when the ship needs them, and that they're not spoiled at the same time. And yeah, I mean, ultimately you could figure that out. But the thing is, if you're doing a 5K SPM build, what will happen is you need 6 to the edge of the solar system instead of 8 or 9. That's pretty much it, because this distance 100,000 kilometers is huge. And then this distance, you go at 120 and then you go back. So this 120 there and back, 100 there and back, and then an extra 30 and an extra 15 is not that much. So you're buying yourself a lot of complexity to need 6 ships instead of 8 farming the Promethiums. Whereas if you just build 8 ships, then they can go all the way back to Nalvis, and they can get the biter eggs themselves. And you don't have to worry about biter egg spoilage. And that's pretty much it. And I mean, overall, it's not really a pain for UPS because those ships, you're still going to have the same amount of ships in the Shattered Planet area at the same time, right? So they're still going to be, regardless of whether you have 6 or 8 ships total, you're still going to have 4 going out to the Shattered Planet at any given time farming Promethium chunks. So, yeah. It's just a question of how many ships you want to build. How are you doing at the moment? How are you? Pretty much all the railguns it needs is just building up the backups. I always put a bunch of backups on it just to be safe. How are we doing? We got 134 rare railguns. That is enough to get 7 and 8 fully equipped as well. Now, having said that, I mean, I'm not sure if I'm going to be going all the way for 5k. If we have a look at Promethium Science, for last hour, I've averaged about 3.8k. The last 10 hours, I've averaged 615, but I haven't had the whole process running for a huge amount of time. But yeah, 3.7k... it's not too bad for the last hour, and I'm assuming that this will kind of be what it is. Yeah. Is it running at the moment? It's running at the moment. It's doing 68,000 science per minute because, of course, we are research productivity. So, yeah. This thing is... I think I had it up to 500%. It's probably a bit higher than that now. It's 530%. Okay, it's not super much higher, but yeah. You can definitely see the UPS is affecting our ability to run around. So, yeah. Yes, but that is pretty good. So, you're going to take a while. This guy's going to take a while to get back to Nalvis, but we can see that it already has 22,000 Promethium chunks, 23,000, and it's pretty much backed up the belt, and it's still got 65,000 Ks to go. So I did calculate it pretty well, but I forgot to calculate the fact that it would probably still have like 2,000 biter eggs in its inventory, and the 2,000 biter eggs would then get converted to science with the first bunch of Promethium, which threw all my calculations off, and it means that we're going to be almost wasting Promethium chunks. Though having said that, we are going to be getting a lot less Promethium asteroids the closer we get back to the edge of the solar system. But I think we're still going to back up. Whether or not we actually lose Promethium asteroid chunks, I do not know. But what I'd probably do is I'd probably change this to be like 8k or something like that. 8-ish. Yeah, I'd say 8. 8 is probably a good value. But I can't be bothered going through all my ships right now because, yeah, as I said, this is the last tutorial. And as far as actually reaching 5k SPM, I'm not super worried about getting to that point. I mean, I'm happy. I'm very, very happy with where I am at this point. And I'm going to be honest, 29 minutes, that's pretty much all we have to cover here. Biter eggs, very straightforward. You just got to scale them up. You just got to... I can't remember how many biter eggs we need, but... to be honest, what did we say? We said we needed 2.8 of the quantum processors per second. and we need 10 byte eggs per quantum processor. So yeah, it's going to be something like 28 byte eggs per second, which is not hard to do. Is really not hard to do. All you do is add more rocket byte egg little locations within your logistics network range. Make sure that your bioflux is up to scratch, but building bioflux is so easy on Glebber. You just need to make sure you ship it over, and it's got a 2-hour spoil time, so yeah, it's not an issue. Quantum processors are not an issue either. I mean, really, they're not an issue. You just got to make sure that you put enough prod modules on them. If you got legendary, great. If you don't, then you just need a bunch more buildings. But as I said, 2.8 a second is all you need for 5k SPM. The pain is going to be getting all these shipped over, but you just have one ship per good, and you make sure that you get them out of the hub, make sure that you cache them properly, and you're basically sweet. So if you've been scratching by with your interplanetary logistics kind of running on fumes, then this will be a wake-up call. Absolutely, this will be a huge wake-up call. But if your interplanetary logistics system is solid, if you've got solid ships, and you just send them anywhere and they just survive, and you don't have to worry about fuel, and you don't have to worry about ammo, and you don't have to worry about anything. You've just got a big old brick that just works. You could just say, go from A to B, pick up 10,000, and then go to B, and then drop it off, and then go back to A and pick up 10,000, and drop it off, and you're good. If you've got that, then you don't have to worry about it. And yes, so a big old brick like this, or a brick that you build yourself, something like that. Now, obviously, you don't need a Megabase to build these, but you need a Megabase to build 20 of them or 30 of them, which I look at these big bricks. Pretty much all of these ships are these big bricks, except for these DSMs. And I'm building, 9 of these big bastards? Yeah, so I have a Megabase. And my Megabase is still struggles to keep all these guys building, but you can see, if we go over to number 7, there are a lot of rockets. Probably no, not that many. I'm actually struggling to build the space platform foundation, but that is because I am only building this much steel. I'm only building 90 steel per second. Yeah, I'm doing a terrible job of building steel. Only 90 per second. So yeah, that is why it's running so slowly. Is it 90 steel per second or 90 per minute? 90 steel per second. Yeah, I was worried for a sec there. It's like, no, these belts are 45 per second. Yeah, only building 90 steel per second. Having said that, using foundries, this is how much iron 90 steel per second uses up. Now, having said that, I do have 290% productivity because I've researched steel productivity up to level 20. So that is why my iron is being drained so slowly. I'm sure when you don't have 20 levels of steel productivity, it probably goes a little bit faster, but still. Yeah. I mean, just get 20 levels of steel productivity. I mean, how much does it cost? Well, level 21 costs 4.9 million. So that's approximately 4.9 million science is what you need. It's not too bad. I mean, come on, guys. So, anyway. That's pretty much it. So, byte eggs, we talked about. The quantum processors, we talked about. Oh, we're out of Promethium science. When's our next ship get back? Okay, number 4 is going to be the next one back. It's got 30k left. And it has definitely backed up severely on Promethium science. And it's still got 29,000 before it gets back to the edge of the solar system. So, yeah. By the way, in case you're wondering, I changed these 2 railguns, the 2 front-facing ones on either side. I basically reversed their priority order. So this one now takes Promethium, then the ice, then the carbon, then the metallic. I did that because my DSM Deeper Space ship actually blew up. I just sent all of them off automatic to do stuff, and the first one just blew up. The other ones didn't, but the deeper space one blew up, and the DSM, the deeper space one, is the one with legendary railguns. So it makes me think that maybe legendary railguns were actually a downside. I did say that on a comment a few videos ago, so now I'm thinking maybe it's true, but yeah. I swapped the priority for these 2 railguns only, not for anything else on the entire ship, and I think that's made it a bit safer. That's definitely made it a bit safer. But anyway, we could wait another... How long is... This is going to take a while to get back to Nalvis to do that science, but yeah. I have found that 2,000 is the sweet spot. See, when you send 2,000, you basically always have about 1,000 in your inventory because it does take a while to convert the Promethium chunks. And the main reason it takes so long is this belt speed, is 60 items per second. So this belt, if you wanted to improve the rate at which you pushed the science through, then what you would probably do is I'm not actually sure how you would do it, because you could split off here, but then splitting off is not going to help because you're still just sending one belt through, because that's the way the belt cache works. You'd have to split off here and then somehow have 2 identical mazes, each one holding like 5,000, and then they each go into their own cryogenic plant, and that would probably increase the rate at which you produce the science. Something like that. Yeah, but it's all good. It is all good. To be honest, Promethium science, once you have a ship that can go out to the shattered planet and survive and then come back, it's pretty simple. So let's talk about the ship for a moment, because, yeah, going out to the shattered planet is actually quite a daunting task. So let's talk about the ship for a second. First things first, you need fusion power. I put a little bit of solar panels on there just so I could kickstart the inserters that fuel the fusion power plant, but yeah, you need fusion power. 100% absolutely. I mean, maybe you could try with nuclear, but just get some fusion, all right? Just get some fusion. This is 2.4 gigawatts on the entire ship. If we have a look at some ships that are out fairly far, we can see, if we look at a power pole, it's currently using about just under a gigawatt. Now, a good portion of that is the beacons and the furnaces and the crushers, because of course they're all prod moduled and speed moduled, so they do go through the roof. The railguns themselves, if we look at a minute, they use about 20 megawatts. So railguns are not really going to kill you too much. They use up a fair bit of power, but you're going to be using way more on all the foundries and stuff like that. They're actually producing the goods. This one doesn't actually use much in min consumption. It's like 83 kilowatts or something like that. So they are active quite a bit in terms of producing stuff, because of course, yeah, we're producing lots of rockets, producing lots of ammo, producing lots of railgun ammo, so on and so forth. So yeah, in terms of defenses, obviously we're using the gun turrets for small and medium, using the rocket turrets for the big ones, and the railguns for the huge ones. Now the turrets are almost superfluous because we are using explosive rockets, and explosive rockets tend to destroy pretty much everything in sight. Everything gets ripped apart. So the turrets have very little to do. They kind of just destroy small and medium ones that somehow sneak past all the explosive rockets. And you really do want explosive rockets, because when you get out far enough, these are only at 30,000, but once you get out to about 100,000, you'll be seeing double to triple the amount of asteroids that you're seeing right now. So it really does sort of ramp up quite heavily. So explosive rockets, absolutely a must. They do take a lot more to build them, but yeah, you can either build up a massive cache, or you can have a massive ship like this that can actually support those explosive rockets. Having said that, this ship, if it gets out to about 200 to 300,000 kilometers, this amount of productivity will start to fall over. So yeah, that's the point where you might start thinking about legendary buildings to actually produce a lot more. But then again, it's kind of, you probably got enough asteroids to make that work, but you have to get legendary all the way down the scale. Here I've just got normal buildings with a whole bunch of speed modules, and it does a decent job. Railguns tend to back up nicely, so does ammo. The explosive rockets, they are the thing that probably runs out a lot, but what I'm doing here is the explosive rockets, the railguns and the turrets, they go all the way down the side of the ship to feed the guys at the side. And then once they get to the end, they loop around and then hub and I store a cache of them. And yeah. And the good part about this is that while it's back at Nauvis, building up the science, while it's traveling from Gleba to Nauvis, it's actually building this cache back up. So these guys will keep inserting while it's less than 30k. So we use a ton of explosive rockets while you're out at the Shattered Planet, and then you will rebuild that cache up once you're out of the Shattered Planet and you're into safer territories. Okay, so it looks like DSM Science 4 has got back. It's got 25k. It hasn't fully backed up on Promethium, but it got close to it. So maybe I won't actually... Yeah, because none of these actually got fully backed up. This one got backed up a bit, but not fully backed up. And that's the important thing. If it was fully backed up and one of these was completely chockers, then I would say, okay, like this one, completely chockers. Okay, so this one's a bit of a problem. So we probably wasted a bit of Promethium, but I don't think we wasted too much. So that's probably okay. How far out are these? So these ones are getting to the point where they're almost the furthest ones out. But yeah. So what I'd recommend is, first of all, you could probably make your ship a bit thinner than my ship. Having said that, if you're thinner, you'll be collecting less Promethium asteroids because you're not shooting as much. So if you're going for an SPM build, then making a wider ship is going to be a good thing. You could make a really shallow, really wide ship, and you could put a ton of engines on it and make it go really fast. This is like a really long, I wouldn't say thin, but in scale it's kind of thin. So there's not that many engines on it, but it's still a decent amount. It still makes 122 kilometers per second, which is decent for a ship this massive. So you could make it very short, very wide, and get some more speed out of it. But you're still going to make sure you build enough space on it to keep the ammo working, to keep all of the ammo stockpiles filled up, that sort of thing. You don't want to do anything silly like, for example, I won't build any ammo. I'll just go over to Aquilo and stock up on ammo there. You can't really do that because, yeah, these guys, rocket capacity of 50, half a stack. And this guy, rocket capacity 25, that's 25% of a stack. If we look at railgun ammo, rocket capacity of 5, half a stack. You got to be making them on the ship. Otherwise, you will kill yourself with rockets sending them up. You could send the raw materials up. You could send iron and copper cable and explosives up. Because I don't think explosives, I think they stack up like 500 decently. But realistically, I mean, you could send explosives up and then use those to make it. But I would just make a ship big enough to be able to make all of its own ammo. This one is overbuilt, but then again, as I said, you go out to 200, 300,000 K, this one starts to fall over in terms of ammo. So if you make a ship half this size, maybe you get out to 100,000 towards the Shattered Planet, and you start to run out of ammo. So yeah, and then what do you do? because that ship is going to spend half its time sitting there building up ammo because you're too scared to send it out to the shattered planet because it's out of ammo. So maybe you just build a massive ship and then it doesn't have to store as much. Yeah, if you're going for SPM, it's a very, very difficult sort of balance to find. And I mean, you're screwed on UPS either way, but yeah, that's pretty much it. So fusion power, make a huge ship, because the huger it is, the more ammo it can produce and the further out it can go. And that makes it more efficient, because the further out you go, the more numerous the Promethium asteroids are. So if you can go out to like 120, 150k, you will start seeing a lot more Promethium asteroids. But you'll see a lot more asteroids of all types, which means it's a lot harder on the ammo to go out to 150k and then go back than it is to go out to 50k and then back 3 times in a row. But you will also get Promethium asteroids a lot quicker. So if you go out to 120k once, you fill up on all your Promethium. Whereas if you go out to 50k, you may have to do 3 or 4 trips in order to fill up to the 25k, which might actually take longer in terms of actual time, which is terrible for if you're building an SPM base. So my advice is build a big ship with a ton of ammo capacity, build as many belts as you can to store the Promethium, and then go out as far as you need to fill up those belts in one trip for the most efficient use. And hope to God that your ammo and your turrets can hold up, because there's a good chance that they won't. You may have to really push the research though. If you go down, you need to get level 23 physical projectile damage and level 23 explosives damage, which I can't see at the moment, but it's there. Level 23 explosive damage. That will allow your turrets to one-shot medium and small asteroids. They'll still two-shot the medium Promethium asteroids, but they'll one-shot all the rest, and it will allow your explosive rockets to two-shot big asteroids. And when I say two-shot, what I mean is that the AoE will two-shot big asteroids. Now, if they for a direct hit, you can see these ones have got like, those ones are Promethium, so they're a little bit different, but we can see that the normal ones, the non-Promethium ones, they get two-shot by AoE damage, which is really important because they're going to be so crowded up. Like if we look up here, these ones are getting a little bit too far away. You can see that one got two-shot by the AoE damage from it hitting this one. And it's really important to get that. Now, if you decide, for whatever insane reason, to use normal rockets instead of explosive rockets, then that same amount of research, level 23, will allow your normal rockets to one-shot big asteroids and two-shot big Promethium asteroids. Having said that, I think in terms of the math, once you're going out to the shattered planet, your explosive rockets just make so much sense. And you save so much ammo on your turrets because they don't need to be shooting barely anything, which is nice. If you use normal rockets, then you're not doing any AoE damage, and you might find that your normal turrets will start to struggle with things going on. Now you notice these guys are using legendary turrets and legendary rocket turrets. They are nice, they're not really super necessary. I think for my 4th one, I switched back to normal rocket turrets because I couldn't afford to make any more legendaries. And it does okay. As long as you only send it out to like 120 kilometers, it's fine. It'll survive fine. Turrets as well, you probably don't need legendary turrets. You'd probably just make do with normal ones, because once you start using explosive rockets, the turrets don't need to pull a lot of weight. If you use normal rockets, then the turrets will need to pull a lot of weight, and getting legendary ones is worth it. But anyway, so that's pretty much it. So as far as the ship is concerned, if we go back to one of the big honking ships right out at the edge, that's pretty much it. Get a bunch of turrets, get a few railguns, get some rocket turrets in the back. Make sure the railguns are at the front, because railguns will blow up your own stuff, which is not good. And yeah, make sure you got enough ammo to keep them going out for the distance, and try and push that distance as much as possible to get your Promethium in one trip. You head out, you do one trip, you head back, and then you head straight back to Aquilo to pick up your quantum processors, head back to Nowvis to do the biter egg science thing. That's pretty much as efficient as you can get it, I would say. And yeah, you can either send the ship all the way back to Nowvis and have it sit there and do the science, or you can send a bunch of biter eggs off with it, and you will get some of them into science, but depending on how many biter eggs you send, some of them might spoil. You can see, like, these are right on the edge of spoiling. This one's going to go down in 50 seconds, so some of these will spoil. So if you, like, this is just me loading up 2,000, we just incidentally get set up and sent up as this ship is leaving Nowvis. So you either got to have a really, really fast ship, or yeah. So if you're thinking, oh, I can load up with like 20,000 biter eggs on Nowvis and then send the ship over to the Shattered Planet, no, it's not going to happen. Your biter eggs will spoil long before you get enough Promethium to knock that up. Unless somehow you are making legendary biter eggs. And here's the thing, you can't make legendary biter eggs. The only way to get legendary biter eggs is to recycle normal biter eggs in a recycler with quality modules and then up them. And yes, you would need an incredible base. Because remember, you need 28 biter eggs per second. So if to make 28 legendary biter eggs per second, you would need the biggest, most stupid base I have ever seen. And I don't know why you would even want to do that. It's just ridiculous. So don't even do that. Don't even bother. Just accept that you are going to need that. I mean, yeah. I just don't think it can be done. You might be able to get biter eggs sent over to Aquilo, drop them off, and then send them back up to the ship. That could be done, but loading biter eggs onto the ship and then sending that ship all the way out to the Shattered Planet, no, it's not going to happen. By the time you get out to the Shattered Planet, you'll get a few thousand science out of them, but more than that, no, the biter eggs will just spoil. They will just spoil. Okay, so where's our... Oh, our ship is still heading back. He's still heading back. How are you doing? Have you got... Okay, all you need are the epic ones now. That's alright. I love the fact that we can remotely do... So we turn this around, send the rare ones back in, change you over to epic, rotate you again, and now you will start filling up that ship, which will be my 6th sign ship. So yeah, as you ship is pretty incredible. I think currently it's like an hour. It's literally like an hour's round trip. So this is where we were building the Promethium signs before. By the time the ships get back, it will be literally like an hour. So yeah, it's massive. But as long as, like, see, you can see we actually used Promethium science packs for a very long time. I think it was like 40 minutes or something. I think it was about 40 minutes. And we have about 5 ships doing the rounds. And we got about 40 minutes. So yeah, if we got like 8 ships total, then we should be able to keep it going 100% all the time. But yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm going to be honest, that's pretty much it. For last hour, 3.6k, yeah, we can get that to 5 by just building in a few more ships. But I think that's it. I think we've talked about everything we need to talk about. I thought I might wait until this one gets all the way back. It's going to get to Aquilo. It's going to load up a bunch of these. I might actually... There's not really much to talk about anymore, to be completely honest. But I will wait because this will load up on quantum processors really quickly. And then it'll head all the way over back to Nowvis. And I might as well show you the process. I might as well. We're here... And we've got, yeah. So in terms of improving this process, we could make a wider ship. But the thing is, if you make a wider ship, you got more engines, but you're going to need even more ammo because your wider ship is going to be dealing with a lot more guys. So it's kind of an offset, because what I would say is you'll probably want to build a narrower ship, because then you've got less asteroids to deal with, but then of course you're getting less Promethium, which means you need more ships. And it also means they run slower because they got less engines on them, which is also not great. So yeah, wider ships are better, but then again, you would have to you can't make it a short wide ship, because you're never going to be able to keep up with the ammo requirements of a short wide ship. So it's got to be a long wide ship. So basically you take this DSM and you make it twice as wide. That's pretty much what you would have to do. Or maybe it doesn't have to be quite that long. It could be a little bit shorter, but yeah. You got to leave space for the massive amount of belts as well to store the Promethium. So maybe it couldn't be that much shorter. But here we go. How much we got? So we got 400 on our way. And yeah, so it's doing a pretty decent job. And do not forget speed modules in between these guys so that the rockets fill up nice and quickly. Do not forget to cache these guys in some chests. I've got a massive cache for these ones, because yeah, you can't always count on them being perfectly spaced apart. Sometimes you will end up with two ships arriving at the same time, because of course we've talked about this before, where ships, when they get to Nauvis and they're unloading, they all don't always unload in the same perfect way. The first ship to get there is not going to unload fully before the second ship starts unloading. Sometimes they start unloading together, and sometimes one ship will arrive 5 minutes before the next ship, but they'll leave at the same time because they decided to synchronize their unloading schedule. And yeah, you end up with ships that were spaced out sort of coming together, which is not great. So you always want to make sure that you kind of err on the side of caution when it comes to your rocket launching capability at somewhere like Aquilo, so that if for some reason you end up with 4 ships and they're all at the same time, they don't all get held up. Now I should probably put a few more rockets there, because I've just got 2, but yeah, I mean 2 is okay-ish. To be honest, I should have like 5 or 6 there, even if there's 1 rocket there, so it could just instantly fill up. But as I said, I'll build 8 ships and I'll send them all off to do their thing. What are you doing? You've got all of your stuff now. You are good to go. I can get rid of you. You can start actually... Well, I say I can start actually doing stuff, but the thing is, this one's going to go out to the Shattered Planet, and then it's going to sit there for a long time while it builds up its ammo caches, because I'm not going to let it go out to the Shattered Planet until it's got a lot of ammo caches. So that's going to sit there for a long time. Whether or not it runs out of fusion power cells in that time is another question entirely. Okay, we do have a wonderful thing where this guy, when it starts running out of fusion power cells, it'll automatically head back to Aquilo and Nauvis and fill back up. So it will sort itself out. It will be fine. We don't have to worry too much about it. But yeah, let's give a look at science. We've been following this guy for a little while, and I was not expecting this video to go so long, but yeah. Let's follow him, her, as she goes back, as they go back to Nauvis, and we'll just watch the final little bit. But it's basically just biter eggs get thrown up, and science gets produced. And yes, I should probably mention as well that this one will not leave until all the science has been drained out of it. And to facilitate that, I have included a massive, massive cache. So this is 24. Oh, that's not good. DSM Science 5. Okay, some of these rocket turrets are running out of ammo. That's probably not good, considering that it's heading to the edge of the solar system. And usually what happens when I start these ships up is I set these 4 front asteroid collectors to be normal. You know what? I think I'm going to do that. I'll fix it up later, but I'm going to get rid of the chunk filter on these guys so that they fully collect everything, so that they can actually start producing some things a little bit quicker. And I'm a little bit worried about this guy, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to send you to Volcanus, and then Aquilo, and then Volcanus again. Okay, so that will allow him to build up a lot more ammo than he currently has. And then, hopefully by the time he gets around to going to the Shattered Planet, the ammo will be full. Okay, DSM 4. It's a long ship. And it's definitely like 190 kilometers a second. It's very fast when you're going out to the Shattered Planet, but it's not very fast when you're going from Aquilo to Gleba. How much do these ships go? I always forget. 228, so it's not that much faster, but then again, these are long. This is the same DSM Science 5. Complaining at the rocket turret, running out of ammo. These guys do run out of ammo quite a lot because here's the ammo just shoots past. And I put a little bit of a cache here for the railguns, but I didn't for the rocket turrets. I probably could do that. Just send this other and then do a little send-off thing. I wonder how many... Maybe I should just do that right now. Oh no. Let's not do that. Apparently I do not have enough belts spare. But I could just do a thing where I sort of route it around and then have a little thing sent it off. So this one's got a little bit of a cache there. But he'll survive. He will survive. Probably wouldn't have survived if I sent him out to the Shattered Planet, but yeah, that's fine. How is our ship doing? This is going to be a long video. It's going to be a long video, but then again, all my videos are long anyway. So if you just want to find out how to do Promethium science, you've already found out. If you want to see the entire... We've seen the entire process in action. All we haven't seen is the science actually being built on Nauvis, so we're going to see it. And it will sit at Nauvis for a little bit, but the entire time it will be building science. So yeah, the only way we could speed that up is by making these belts work faster. Doing that split group we talked about before, and having 2 belts come in at the same time. Yeah, so... Sorry, that was just an email I got. Alright, now we're really trucking. Although I think it's slowing down a bit. Why are you slowing down a bit? The engine should be running at full speed. This is like the first ship I've ever made that never runs out of fuel. Never ever runs out of fuel. Because we've got enough electricity to just put prod and speed modules everywhere. So, yeah. I don't actually know why it's slowing down. Maybe it slows down the closer it gets to Nauvis or something like that. Maybe there's some sort of speed limit the closer it gets to Nauvis. It slowed down a bit and then it sped up a bit. What is going on here? I mean, these engines, they should not be slowing down. They should be full fuel. Like, all of these storage tanks are going to be full 100% of the time. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why his speed's slowing down. I don't know why that speed is varying. Who knows, but... Anyway, if we go back over to Nauvis, we can go up here. We're going to see these guys start to kick off very, very quickly as soon as that ship arrives. This one... Almost there. Almost there. And then you can see all these inserters immediately turn on, start filling up all the rocket silos. Now, not all of them will be kicked off, but I think 4 of them will be kicked off at a time. And yeah, it uses the it gets a huge bunch of them, but it uses them surprisingly slowly. because we've only got 4 cryogenic plants. And that's kind of a restriction of the hub, because you can't really fit more around the hub. And could we put about 10 or 20 out here and then use belts? Potentially we could. Potentially we could. But I just like this neat little setup. And I mean, there we go. So there's the biter eggs. I think the biter eggs just landed. And as you can see, it's producing science fairly quickly. I actually do need to upgrade these guys. I keep forgetting to do that. Having said that, even if I upgrade those guys, you start to see these guys, I upgraded them immediately. They start running out of Promethium science because this belt isn't going fast enough. But yeah. Yeah. It's going to start draining the belt like, well, at full speed anyway. But yeah. So the time that belt takes to drain is actually a little bit of an issue, which I think is why some people say, oh, you know, maybe you should grab the biter eggs and then go off to the Shattered Planet and start doing stuff, because then you're sort of draining the Promethium belt as you're actually flying, which is great. What I could do is I could sort of go back here and do some sort of maths to say, okay, grab 10,000 biter eggs at any given time, and then you leave when you've got 10,000 biter eggs and Promethium asteroid chunks is less than or equal to 25k. See, what I'm doing right now is I'm waiting till it's 0, which is probably not a good idea. I could be waiting till Promethium asteroid chunks are less than the amount that the biter eggs I've got on the ship can produce. Now, the downside to that is I'm flying off with Promethium science, but then again, when I get back home at the next round trip, then I will drop the science off at that point. So I'm still producing the same amount of net science, it's just it gets dropped off a lot later. So that's definitely an improvement that you could make, which would mean the ship is sitting around Nauvis a lot less often. And that could potentially save me an entire ship. Or maybe even 2. Probably not 2, but it could definitely save me an entire ship. And then, of course, the belt throughput problem is not a huge deal. So maybe, you know what? I'll make this change just on this ship. So, 10,000. And what did we say? 10 and 25. Now, to do that, we need to get rid of that condition, but... yeah, so here's the problem with this situation. It's going to continue building science. And because it's continuing to build science, it's going to continue to request biters, because it's going to keep going through them. So it might work out, but it might end up in an infinite loop, where it keeps just requesting biters. Biter eggs, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. It might work. It might work. It's got 1,500 on the way. It depends. If it can use up 500 biter eggs by the time that it goes through, by the time it takes a rocket to launch, then it might end up in an infinite loop. In which case it will just keep requesting biter eggs until the Promethium is down to 0, and then we'll end up with 10,000 biter eggs anyway. And 10,000 biter eggs would just get drained because blah 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 blah. So yeah, and that's because it just keeps waiting for the rocket to arrive. I so wish that I could determine the amount of biter eggs I request based on logic, based on something to say, well, based on how many Promethium we have, get that many biter eggs and not a single one more. But there's no way to do it that I can think of that the game seems to have. You can hook this up. You can't set request logic based on a certain condition. You just can't. This would be really awesome if you could do that. But anyway, yeah. See, it's in a loop. It's stuck in a loop. It's not going to work. So, yeah. So, it's not going to work. So, we're just going to have to go back to how we did it before, because the only way to do it would be to say, don't actually create science until you leave the station, or something crazy like that. So you basically say something like, okay, get all the biter eggs, and then once you've got all the biter eggs, you don't actually make any science. You don't turn these buildings on until you've left the station. So you do something like these buildings only activate when your movement speed is greater than 0, or something ridiculous like that. And then you actually start making the science when you're heading away from Nalvis. And of course, while you're getting those original 10,000 biter eggs, you're dropping off 100,000 science that you made last time onto the planet. Something ridiculous like that. So you'd never actually make science while you're stationary. That would be a way to do it. And that would be the most efficient use of your time here, because you'd not be stuck in this weird cycle where you're just constantly getting biter eggs and constantly using them up. You just get a ton of biter eggs really quickly, you drop off all your science really quickly, and then you just book it. And that would be really, really awesome, actually. But I'm not going to bother doing that now, but it is a really, really great idea to improve efficiency. And maybe, yeah, you definitely drop a ship off, go down to 7 ships. Maybe 6, but I'm thinking probably not. But anyway, I think that's pretty much it. We've seen it. We have talked about some improvements. It is quite awesome. Yes. And definitely, yeah, I can see now that building the science on this sort of thing, just building it and sitting here, definitely not good. But we already worked out a solution to make it while you're moving. The only thing you have to worry about is making sure you've got enough storage space to store all that science, because you'd be building, what, 25,000, and then this is a prod bonus of 200%, which is, so you'd be building 30,000 science basically, and just sort of letting it sit there in your ship for the entire round trip. But yeah, I mean, that's doable. That's very doable, I think. But anyway, I think we're done for now. We've showed the entire process, and if we look at our science, we can see, yeah, it's just about an hour. Close to an hour. Yeah. 1.51, 0.50, approximately an hour. So there we go. And we got the science back up again, and it is back up to 67, which is awesome. So, I'm going to end the video off here. I'm still a little bit... The thing is, I was kind of waiting to do a full base tour, like a full massive base tour, until that FPS fix was done. And the FPS fix came in, and it's still slow. So, I don't think I'm ever going to get to 60 FPS, 60 UPS for this entire base. So, I'll see how we go. I might still do a full base tour, but I don't know. I'll see how we go, because that's going to take a long time. And I've already gone through every Megabase individually on each planet, so I might not bother. You know what? I probably won't bother, because you can just look at each individual base individually, and it's all good. But it would be nice to have like one massive video which does the entire thing. I'll think about it. That has been a tutorial on how to make Promethium science. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll catch you guys later.